Right, welcome to this new lesson. This is lesson 24. In this lesson we will be creating signs, posters and whatever is related to that. We will be using some of the previous tutorials. I will link that in the description if things comes up. You will find this scene on my Gumroad. I'll put a link in the description so that you can easily download that. And then instead of drawing the whole scene yourself, you can use this as a template and paint with me. Or you can create your own scene, paint your own scene and draw along as we go. The cost for the template is $5 and will help me create more assets like this. But like I said, you are free to draw your own scene and draw along with me. So first off, let's create some samples of what we think we will need. Or maybe let's write a few ideas down. So we will need to have a sign here. Let's call that business sign. We might want a few posters, and we can have street signs, flyers, maybe newspapers, everything that's got to do with information and informing people about businesses and the likes. So let's start with business signs. Maybe I'm going to do rough drawings and then we'll clean it up and make it neater. So maybe for this building here, maybe on this side of the building, we will have a signpost hanging from a bar like that. This sign will say that this is a tavern maybe. Here we can have a news outlet, so this is our local newspaper printing shop. Just gonna write news there, and maybe we have a stand in front of this that says that this is a news that sells the newspapers. We might need a street sign here telling us in which street we are on which street we are and which streets we want to go to. Something like that. And then we might have, all right, so we've done that one, we've done the posters, we've done the street signs, we've done the newspapers. Oh no, we've not done the posters. So there might be a few criminals in town and we will need to present their faces to the public, telling them be wary of these thugs. Right, and maybe another poster in here. Maybe there's two posters. One has been covered by another one. Maybe so we've done the posters and flyers. So people selling their goods on street. So I'm just gonna put a flyer there as a reminder, and maybe the same flyer there as another reminder. So I think that's it. So we've got the basics in now. Right, so let's start off with the business sign. I'm gonna lower the opacity. I'm gonna make a new layer which we'll call rough. So this is a neater rough, and I want to create a new color, maybe a grayish blue color like that. Right, and then let's flesh out the signpost. All right, following the grid, we are going to create this signpost that fits against the wall, and then we've got an arm that comes out like this. Remember to follow the grid. I've placed, let's make the opacity slightly less so that it's easier to draw. Maybe this can be a round bar instead of a square bar. And we could have a decoration in here. One of those curly decorations that holds up the signpost. Just want to lighten this a little bit. And we could have that going into a point like that, just to make it interesting and make the corners around it instead of square. Right, so then we can hang the sign in here. So the chains will come down, or ropes will come down like that, and we will have the sign hanging here. Now, this is an old town, and maybe that sign, that chain broke, and this is now longer. With the fix, they added rope in there and they fixed the sign. Remember in lesson 21 how we rotated squares and objects like this? We're going to do this, we're going to use the principles in which we used in lesson 21 to rotate our sign. So we're going to draw a square plane, add the crosses, and remember we did the circle so that we can rotate it on the pivot. And we said that if we look at that, it follows the grid, but we want to have the sign hang down. So we are going to use that, skip this wedge, use that, skip this wedge and use that, skip this wedge and put it down there. And you'll see that it crosses over the middle. Then you know you've got it right. So I'm gonna just do that. And that's helping us get this sign perfectly rotated in isometric. Instead of guessing what these angles needs to be, we can use isometric or this circle to rotate our sign in isometric perspective. So I'm going to take that and move it up, hang it from there. So there we go. So this is now perfectly rotated in isometric perspective. Okay, I'm going to lower the opacity and create a new layer, and now we're going to draw that sign. We could add a bit of embellishment or decoration on our sign. Then remember the thickness of the sign will still follow the usual isometric grid pattern. Okay, that's one sign done. Let's look at the poster. So we put this off. Right, where are you? Right, let's quickly fill this in before we continue. Just want to make this easier to select. Let's use the wand tool and see. There we go. Select that. Shift Control I to invert that and create a new fill layer. Let's make that a brownish color like that. Okay. Then just put it below this layer, and we still need to erase some of the where it has overshot. So let's quickly erase some of the holes that we still need in this background color. Right, then let's duplicate that layer and go to properties and change it to a grayish blue color like that. Something maybe slightly darker. Right, okay. And then using the lasso tool, we want to get rid of that so that we have the wooden color. Right, and then let's go back to the 50% and just lower it again. So now we have our sign in place. Next up, let's group that together and call it pub sign. You can always add your own writing on the sign. Right, where's our rough? Let's leave that rough. Now the poster, being placed by a human, will not be as straight as when it is placed by a machine. So let's imagine, let's use an orangey color like that. Let's imagine that the poster is going to be square. So we follow the grid and draw a square in. Remember to follow the grid. Then cross it again. Do your circle in there. Right, and this time we also want to rotate the poster. Now let's imagine that the poster is going this way. So we want to have it on that wedge, on this wedge, and this wedge. Right. Okay. Now that we've got those angles, we can extend it because we've got those in place. We can extend it and just make sure that these lines stay parallel to these lines and these to these. Then everything should be fine within isometric perspective. But I want the poster to be a little bit lower, so let's use that. Bring it down, maybe scale it a little bit smaller. Something like that. And lower the opacity, start a new, create a new fill layer or a paint layer, call it poster 01 brush. And then press the D to set it to default colors, the black and white. So foreground color is white now, background is black. And now you can start to draw in your poster. I'm using a 3 pixel brush for my scene. And of course, posters aren't always perfect. They get torn, and maybe the corners curl over, and maybe there's a big tear in here as well. Okay, and of course we have the contents of the poster, maybe a drawing of the criminal that's being looked for, and the reward. So there's one poster. Let's use the lasso tool and quickly create the fill color. The nice thing about fill colors is you can always change it later on. Right, so right click, properties, and change the color. Right, and let's group that together and call it poster 01. We said that we had flyers going around in the scene, so we've got a flyer that's there. So let's create a new layer and draw a square again. I'm going to use an orange color. Having a system helps you to know what you want to do. So for my first square, I can draw for my guidelines, I use an orangey color. You can change any other color you want to. Then I do my usual cross like that. Remember to follow the grid and then your circle. And you can make a template of this so that you don't have to redraw everything, which I think I should do now. So copy, Control V. Let's move that out of the way. I'll get back to that one later. And we want to turn that poster or flyer in a different direction. So using a blue color, let's turn the poster or flyer in this direction. So that we have our poster or flyer going in this direction. Right, you can always change, you can always create more guidelines for yourself. So maybe we have another template going in here. Okay, this will make sense in a few strokes. So, that's not correct. That's not right. Always remember that these lines needs to always stay parallel in isometric, and these lines also need to stay parallel in isometric. So when you see things go out of whack, just make sure that things stay parallel to each other. Like for instance, this stays parallel to that and that. Right, so we've got two rotations of that. Let's do a third rotation, and then we can create a whole bunch of posters that lies around in the scene from this template. So it's almost the half of that wedge. I can draw another one in there, and almost the half of this wedge. So, and it needs to stay parallel to each other, and the same there. Right, so I can narrow that down, just making sure that these stay parallel, and I can narrow that down, make sure it stays parallel. Right, so paint layer. All right, so there's, let's call that our circle, and create a new layer, and let's call this flyer. Let's draw in a flyer using the purple now. A title in there, and then maybe a picture that's been drawn by an artist like us, and maybe a few written letters in there, a few written lines. Let's select that, move that to the side. Right, we've used the purple lines. Let's use the blue lines now. And let's use brush for the green poster now. Flyer, poster, flyer, oh my word. So now we've created 3 flyers on a single layer. We can duplicate that. So what I want to do now is just do the same that I've done before. Create a new layer underneath this to fill with color. You can merge this together. Just make sure that the layer is called flyers. Now we can move that around. So disperse them, Ctrl J, and what you can do is Ctrl T and flip it horizontally so that it looks like a different set of flyers. Using your lasso tool, select that and move that one around. All right, so we've got the business sign, we've got the posters, we've got the street sign next up. So create a new layer. Let's put all of the flyers together, merge them into one layer. Right, and then let's create a new layer for the street sign. To make life easy and simple by copying that. And then Control T, mirror horizontally, and just move that into place. And using your eraser, you can remove whatever you don't want in this one. Right, same story. Let's select using the lasso tool. Let's make a mask using the lasso tool. I'm going to duplicate that layer, and you change the properties to a grayish blue color. And then I want to erase this so that we get that brown color for the sign. Right, let's group that together or merge it. Let's call that street sign. We've got that. Let's quickly do the rest. You'll see me keep doing the same thing over and over again using the same principle. So let's populate the scene with all sorts of objects. Thank you for joining me in this lesson. I hope you learned something new and see you in the next lesson.